So, mechanical engineer, turned contractor for 20 years, lived off-grid for 2 years, started farming, and now helps people buy and sell homes in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia. We're going to have a great conversation about independence from the system with infinite banking, and we're joined today by a guest, Riccardo Manazza. Riccardo, you've been practicing this concept of infinite banking for about 2.5 years now. You've had a crazy experience in business and in life. You've done so many amazing things. Before we hit the record button, I got a little bit of the gist on some of the insights into your amazing life in business. And I'm excited to chat with you today about the power of going off grid financially when it comes to the infinite banking concept. So thanks for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you, Richard.
Now, we're going to talk a little bit about some of your background because I think it frames up how IBC, came into your life a little bit. And so you kind of mentioned before we hit the record button that you actually graduated as a mechanical engineer a little over 20 years ago, but it wasn't a very good economic time frame. And so you found yourself building somebody's deck as a favor to a friend, and then this was pretty fun. I'm going to go start a contracting business. So that's a very different shift for people after going through a 4-year university degree. Walk us through what was going on at that time and how you kind of gravitated to the idea of becoming a general contractor.
I just got off the co-op program. UBC offers like a co-op where you get to work in different areas. And I even traveled to Germany and I worked for a laser company doing the UV laser little molds that you could only see with a microscope. And at the time that was like revolutionized. I loved it. I mean, there was a lot of computer work and stuff like that. But when I came back, I did my last 4 months and finished high school. I mean, I graduated from UBC and then I came back and then I started looking for jobs, and I had my 3 experiences. So there was pasta machine making, and then I worked for a chemical company just in North Vancouver, and then this job in Germany. And the job postings were very few. And the one that I remember was this one from Domtar, is a pulp mill company down on Annacis Island. And they actually called me in for an interview. And I was like waiting on the edge of the seat, right? Like when you get excited about getting information. And then I just wasn't hearing back from them. So I just called them up and I said, so what's up? How did I do on the interview? Like, did I get the job or anything? And then they're like, unfortunately, we couldn't get you in because we're in hiring. So they're hiring somebody that is already in the company. And the way the market is going, it's not so strong that they're hiring engineers.
So there's a theme developing about independence on the land, from your background to a drive, and then even with a gift from your father-in-law. Is really fascinating how all these things are connecting. And I'm seeing a lot of parallels to what would attract you initially, which we'll get to about your infinite banking journey. This idea of growing your own seeds and having a level of independence and control over your family's destiny.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. And then we started planting this garden, and my father-in-law gave me actually 2 canisters. He's like, how are you going to grow the seeds in case of emergencies? Like when you have to, if you don't know what the seed is going to do. So he gave me 1 to play with and 1 to put in the ground, bury it in the ground and actually, preserve it for long term. Right. And so I did that. And all of a sudden I was like blown away. I had peas like 6 feet high, plants that was like producing like insanely amount of peas. Like we were just in the garden every morning, fresh peas on the pod. And then in one of our brainstorm or masterminds, let's call it at the time, we decided to call it Cézanne Seeds. And we started an online seed company and was all based on these heirloom varieties, and then just growing them. And then because the story about seeds too, like I went in and I always want to research. I'm that kind of guy. After graduating from engineering, I always research stuff. And I found out that the seed actually stores in its DNA the events that have happened in its life. So that's why it's good that heirlooms, because they're considered 25 years or older, it's kind of like a vintage car, right? It's been through everything, right? And so, but the seed has collected all this information about the soil, about the watering, and it builds strength over time because it's went through all these seasons, right? And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like this could make a really good story even when I sell it, right? So so I went in and we started this company. And then obviously when you're growing seeds, you're growing also products and like you have zucchinis and squashes. And then I was like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? It's not just going to be a seed company. I'm going to have to market it and sell it. So we started going to farmers market and started selling it and having all this stuff. And then all of a sudden I was also into animal husbandry. I was growing up in Italy, so it's all salami and prosciutto and sausage.
You had to experience everything. You wanted the buffet menu of the farming experience.
I wanted to be at one point, and I did achieve it. Everything on my table came from that farm. I grew it myself. And at that point, it was the most amazing feeling because I was like, wow, this is an achievement. Obviously, there's a lot of lessons that happen in there. And related to that, it was like, I always built for freedom, right? And I always looked into what freedom means. For different peoples, it means different things. But for me, it's like freedom of independence, freedom of doing what you want to do. Obviously, understanding society and being not like, oh, I just want to race my car down the streets and possibly hurt somebody. No. It's like not the no hurt concept, but have the freedom to do it, right? And also have the freedom to grow my own food, know where it comes from, and also know what to do with my money, right? And invest it and grow it and just have that freedom to go wherever I want, right? When I want. And so I did achieve the food part, the food sovereignty part. And I also achieved the off-grid part. But it's at that point, the off-grid part that went, well, maybe I can work with society and not be so.
You were able to do it, but there's sacrifices in making that decision that you also experienced. So you realized, okay, I want to be able to put the plug in the wall and unplug it when I want and plug it in when I want, relative to my interaction with society. Is that kind of what happened?
Yes. Well, no. When I bought the property going off grid, it was just a field, just a 2-acre field. And when I bought it, I wanted it to be mortgage free. That was my other freedom status. So being away from the banking system, because with the farm, I learned a few things about the mortgage and how it works. And like we talked about it before in our preview, it was just the freedom on the land sort of concept is like, how are banks charging us interest and out of nothing? And I just wanted to know, like, where's the money coming from? Because somebody put a bug in my ear that it's actually your promissory note. And when I looked at my mortgage contract, holy shit, it is my promissory note. And I'm like, I am promising to pay this, and then they're giving me the money based on this promissory note. And then when I hand them over, they just collect the interest on that. And I'm like, that doesn't sound fair. So I did confront the bank at the time, and I told them, hey, where does the money come from? And they're like, well, that's a lawyer question. We can't disclose that. And I was like, well, but this is the bank. Like, you're charging me interest on the money. Is this money created from my promissory note that, like this right here? And I just showed them the piece of paper, and I was like, we can't answer that. That's a question that you have to ask our, what's it called? Some type of a
The,
lawyer.
the legal team.
Yeah, the legal team. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I researched again. Is this really true? And then I was finding out, like people were trying to give up the mortgage. I mean, the banking system and obviously the legal system is all tied in together. So it's a really not hard nut to crack. So it's not that you can just be like, hey, this is all my stuff. You can't do this. I'm not paying you back. No, that doesn't work. There's resources and foreclosure proceedings. So I was like, no, I don't want this anymore. So we just went off, and fortunately my wife followed me through it. So we sold that farm, and then whatever proceed we had from it, I wanted to find a piece of land that was mortgage free, independent. And so then I found this property. It was in the next valley over, and then I started building from there. And I'm like, I don't want to be tied into the power system, so I got myself some solar panels. And then I had to get myself a generator, because obviously here in Canada we don't have sun in the winter time. And then at the time I also had problems with pumping the water, because I had a 100-foot drop down below. Like it wasn't a flat land as I used to be. This was like a up top, and then an acre up top and an acre down below, right? And everything in between. And so then I had a plumbing system, so I had to generate enough power during the day to pump the water up and then collect it there, and then I could spread it around the farm up top, because I used to have the animals and everything up top.
You have new challenges to face after you've already conquered a bunch of them. And so what I'm hearing, Riccardo, is you've gone through a number of reinventions, but the theme of your life has been, number one, a curiosity to learn new things, research, grow, develop, grow yourself, grow things, grow your family, grow all the things that you need to use, independence, and a desire to have your version of freedom to the maximum capacity that's able to provide you. And your experience with the bank and just dealing with mortgages and things in that nature led you to understand that there must be a better way. So 2.5 years ago, somehow infinite banking jumped onto the scene for you. What happened? How did you become aware of IBC originally?
That's a great question. So obviously social media grew, right, over the years. It's becoming insane. And then obviously we all know that the microphones are on by now, and they're listening to you and creating profiles, right? And I've always been looking to find out other out of the box sort of ideas and freedom. So that was in my profile, and it was also in my wife's profile, because she was more towards health research and money and finances. And then she's like, hey Davis, have you ever heard about the infinite banking system? I just got this commercial, and I looked at it, I was like, policies, assets, this is what the rich people do. I was like, I don't know. No, I never heard of it. And then I researched it, I typed it on Google, and then I went infinite banking system, and then Nelson's Natch book comes up first, right? I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So then I went and bought it, and I couldn't put it down. I read it. Yeah, I read it in 2 days. I was just like, no freaking way. I was just telling it to everybody. I had to repeat it because it just sounded so out of this world. I was like, you can become your own banker. I was like, it's everything, like it felt like the universe was like, finally, I got it. It's telling you, look, this is where you have to go, right? And then I researched more into it, and that's how I got in contact with Jinjin, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, because like it was related. They were promoting the Nelson book, so I was like, I called her up. I was like, is it true that there's no infinite banking system possibility, like policy writers here in Canada? Because at the time, now Nash didn't know if there was anything in Canada. Maybe you mentioned one or two policies that you were able to underwrite. And then I was like, okay. Well, I talked to her and she's like, no, it's possible. It's possible. You got to read these books. And I'm like, oh my God, it's possible. No way. And then she ran the numbers of like a scenario for myself, what I was comfortable with. And then I was like, let's do it. I signed it up. And then I was telling to my friends, I was like, I know it takes time. It's like a long-term view, but because of my farming background, I knew what it takes, like seed savings and storing and
The idea of a seed bank,
yeah,
preserve it for a long time for
yeah.
emergencies, etc.
And then I was like, well, that's not the part about financing all your stuff, right? Like buying a car or buying real estate and doing deposits and everything. And funny enough, I used the loans because I was able to take the loans after 2 years. I used the loans to fund putting a mobile home on the property and getting power to the property. So
So you have your off-grid capacity, but now you have in the grid utilization as well.
yes, yeah. And then that's when I signed up for it, and I was like, this is amazing. What a product! And the other thing too that people don't realize is the protection for family. Once I signed that policy, I was like, I'm protected now. If anything happens to me, in some ways, not over the years, I'm not expecting to happen right then when I was 42, but in the future, if anything happens to me, my family will be okay, kind of, right? And having that assurity too, it just, I don't know, it created a sense of more freedom, but it wasn't like a freedom personal. It was like a legacy sort of a way, right? And I was just like, my mindset changed, and the discoveries and, like helping it to promote to other people too changed, right? And I was just like, wow, this is cool. And, and just trying it too. It's not something that you deposit money and you got to wait, 5 years. I tried it after 2 years, right? I got a loan for 20,000. I was like, wow, it is working, because at first it's like you read it and it's always scary. I don't know if I could do this. And what if it doesn't work? All your doubts, we all get doubts in our life, right? But when I clicked loan, and it was such an easy application too, I was like, no background check, no credit score, no nothing. It was just like, how much money do you want? And then my money's still growing too. And it's not depending on the market. It's not fluctuating because I knew about investments and I was into crypto and blah, 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 and all that other stuff and volatility and risk management. No, it grows every year for the last 500 years. And I was like, and then I see it the next year. I'm like, oh, it did grow. This is amazing. And then, I was just like, wow, like what a concept. And
What's the feeling like being, given the experience you shared about, the previous mortgage, wanting a property that was mortgage free, now having to utilize your policy, equity from your policy to fund things that you needed for the property or for other items. What's the feeling like, Riccardo, for you, knowing that you get to dictate the terms of how you repay that loan?
At first I had to read the don't take out the P's a couple of times. I read the book over and over, and I even have it on audiobooks. So with my real estate, I travel a lot. So whenever I want a refresher and just get energized and, motivated, inspired again, I just listen to it, because I don't know if you have experienced it, but every time as you go through life, there's different events that happen, and then you correlate those events with what the book is telling you. So at first, it was the infinite banking concept because I was going through the banking and questioning the banking system and everything. And that's what connected to me. But then it's like, when I had the loan, it's like, what do I do to repay it back? Because there's no restrictions. You can pay it back $100 a month, or you can pay $1,000 a month. It's all up to you and how do you see it and how you project it, right? And how you can adapt it too. It's not that you have to call your loan officer, hey, I can't make the payment this month. Can we reduce it a little bit? No, you have full control. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, it gives me the goosebumps, right? Like, just to be able not to be dependent, especially on the bank. Because when you realize that, like, some of the problems that we have in the world is because of some of the structures that are there. And also, what I found out, the banks take deposits in and then they lend the money 10 to 15 times the depository, right, of what they have in deposit. But the insurance companies don't. They just grow. And so it's like you're pulling money together with people that have the same idea, the same goal, the same sort of freedom. And I was like, this is where you leverage people, right? And by good planning, you can achieve the same as the banking system, but without the printing, the inflation, the problems. Like, now we're talking about affordability. Well, yeah, because the banks have screwed it up. They're making all these loans and printing all this money on your promissory note, and it's destroying us in a sense. And then I have experienced it because I pulled myself out of the real estate market. A real estate market is the perfect example because it will go with inflation. But if you pull yourself out, at $100,000 per home, because back in the days when we were starting looking, it was $100,000 for a home. And now that same home is $1 million. But if you pull yourself out, you can't get back in because you lost it with inflation, right? And it's taking a disadvantage for the new people, the first-time buyers. Like, in real estate, we are now at 40 years old is your average first-time buyer age, right? And knowing this, it's a little bit of a plague, right? It's like, man, how do you spread this word, right? Like, how do you spread this knowledge that, hey, listen, when I was going back to the free man on the land, if everyone dropped their mortgages, there would be no more banks, right? And I was like, okay, that's a great concept, but I can't dream in that sense. But we need to create a system that can run parallel and then have the people joining to it, right? And that's why I'm a big supporter of the Be Your Own Banker.
Well, and you mentioned working essentially with other people in contract, even though you don't know them. And in real estate, now that you're heavily involved in real estate from a realtor perspective and helping people with buying and selling, often in real estate, people talk about OPM, other people's money. And you had that situation. You used to flip some houses and do some housing deals with your mom and stuff. So you've experienced that. And usually we talk about OPM and they think, oh, we're using the bank's money. Well, in this situation, OPM is the insurance company's money, but quite literally, the OPM is actually other policy owners' money because it's all under the caretaker administration management of the insurance company. And the sole purpose that they have is to do a good job for all the policy owners. They have literally no other purpose. And it's just such a unique kind of a closed loop system. In Nelson's book on page 26, he has a picture of the money pool and he talks about the hierarchy of who can receive capital. They have to put the capital to work for the benefit of everyone in the system. They got to invest some money on big projects and they got bonds, they got all these types of things. And then one of the places that they can put the money to work is with you and with me and with other people watching this right now who have similar policies. So when you take a policy loan, it's an invested asset of the insurance company and they have to manage that. And yes, they have to charge interest, but they're charging interest for everyone in the deal. we all participate in that advantage. So when I take a loan, hey, Ricardo's going to benefit if we're in the same insurance company, and vice versa. I may not see the interest that you're paying and you won't see the interest I'm paying, but it's all getting congealed together in that big, glorious money pool that we share in. That's the beauty of mutual ownership. The idea and the theme of, being self-sufficient. And I walked us through a journey of self-sufficiency from an economic climate that couldn't support your degree in mechanical engineering, taking the initiative within 2 weeks of a new job to buy a truck and get some Ryobi tools to start your own business, to create self-sufficiency, leaving all of that behind to start a farming, but in the process of running your day job, running your contracting business, building and growing your knowledge base around farming so that when you made the pivot, you already had the skill set that had built up over probably 5 or 6 or 7 years. So you had skill set to move into the new idea. And that was a capitalization period that allowed you to move that energy that you created and the time and the knowledge into business number 2, being a farmer, the heirloom seeds and all these things you share with us. Then transitioning that into creating self-sufficiency on your own land, being mortgage-free, being self-sufficient off the grid, to now going from separating from the bank to now controlling the banking environment in a way that most people don't even know is possible for the rest of your natural life. And how old are your kids again, Ricardo? Share that with us if you don't mind.
15 and 13.
So you left Italy at age 15, and you now have children that are the same age that you were when you left the whole country. You moved lock, stock, and barrel, and you are now able to share with them the degree to which they can create independence in their life that they're already seeing. They're living in a farm situation, and they've experienced off-grid life. These are inherent lessons, not unlike the ones that you received on your grandparents' property in Italy. Then you're carrying that torch forward and creating this generational knowledge base. And now you get to now infuse that knowledge base around the complete independence from a banking system. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that your kids won't have some connection to the traditional banking system, but they're certainly going to be aware and know that it's possible to completely disconnect from it and how they can go about making that process happen. When you think about your bigger future in relation to what you see for your children, your wife, how does that make you feel?
Well, wow. First of all, I never heard anybody put it that way. That's an amazing insight, but I just felt like, wow, I did achieve a lot. I don't think I give myself enough credit as being the example, but yeah, my kids are able to decipher. I mean, we did homeschool them too, right? Because another rabbit hole is the schooling system. And
Nelson Nash used to say, when him and his wife Mary, when they'd see a school bus go by, they would nudge each other, and Mary would say, "There go the inmates."
yeah, exactly what it is. It's another prison, right? But it's also a prison of the mind, and that's the biggest thing that people don't realize when they put their kids into the schooling system, that they're binding them to have these rules and construct, right? And they're not going to learn about the infinite banking system. They're not going to learn how to grow their own food. They're not going to learn what makes them independent, right? All they're going to be learning is how to be dependent, and I don't know about you, but if I wasn't like the guy that was standing up and questioning everything, I was just like the kind of the shy guy and just hoping that somebody was going to ask the question that I had. But that seldomly happened because I already had the mental freedom. I was like, why? Most of the times my questions was, why? Why do you do that? And, but going back to the kids, it's like, it is given the choice. And that's what I think the society doesn't have. You don't have a choice, or for what I wanted to do in my life was being able to have the choice. It's like, if you want to choose, that's freedom, right? Like having choices. If you have one thing, like, oh, you got to go to school. No, at once they got of the age that they weren't so naive, let's say, 10 years old, then we gave them the choice. You can go to school or you can continue here and learn on your own. So they chose to go to school. Well, my eldest chose to go to school because he turned first 10 years old, right? Obviously. And then my youngest followed through because he was seeing how much fun he was actually instead of being at home. But again, kids don't understand the concept of you're doing it for a reason because they haven't experienced life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you said, they experienced the farm, but they didn't experience the why. Why did daddy and mommy brought us to the farm? Kind of thing, right? Like it's the same thing. I was 15 when I moved here. I didn't know why I was going to the farm. Yeah, I lost my dad, but I didn't technically know like there was a financial issue with my mom. She had to go to work and work 10 hours a day, and she wasn't able to come back, and she wasn't going to pay for a babysitter, right? I didn't know those issues until I learned myself, like, holy shit, man. She did a lot of sacrificing, right? And so now my kids don't really understand why we went off the grid, why we did this. I mean, yeah, they hear it because it's me and my wife always think about it, right?
They have knowledge
Yeah.
because you can share a reason and a rationale, but knowledge does not equal understanding.
Yeah, exactly. And
You can research something all day long. You can read this book, Becoming Your Own Banker, and you can know that it exists, and you can know that you can go get a whole life insurance policy. But until you get one and take that policy loan and get, power services to your property that's been off grid for 2 years and be able to dictate the terms of how you repay it back to a system where you get to reuse all the payments again, you don't understand.
exactly. Beautifully said. I couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm not sure, Riccardo, if you've checked out much of our resources in our online membership site. If you've probably logged into the Ascendant membership site a time or two.
Yeah, a couple of times.
One of the videos that's in there is the backwards bicycle. Did you ever watch the backwards bicycle?
No.
It's a video I found on YouTube years ago. Also, a gentleman, he's got a channel called Smarter Every Day, and he's an engineer, mechanical engineer, actually, I believe. And so he had this welder create a bike where, he didn't actually, the welder just created it, but when you turn to the right, the tire goes left.
I've seen it.
It's a 7-minute video. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. So we have that inside of our membership portal because I'm the one that sent that video to Nelson Nash. And I got the chance the first time I was able to MC our annual conference at the Nelson Nash Institute, our think tank event, and Nelson asked me to MC, I played that video for everybody. And then I got them to go through a thinking exercise because while it has to do with learning how to ride a bike, it really has to do with neural pathways and how we train our brain on something and it becomes so natural or so built up as a habit in our life that it becomes very difficult to pivot and just immediately change gears into something else. Whereas, so for an adult, it's hard to make that choice, but yet he was able to teach his 7-year-old son how to do it in 2 weeks, something that took him 8 months to do. And that's the degree to which that the child's brain has more capacity to maneuver and see things because it hasn't developed 40 years of bias about something else in life. And it's a powerful lesson. And so what you're identifying about your kids, and yeah, they have this knowledge base, but they don't necessarily truly understand. There's so much potential in what you're going to be able to share with them and show them over the next number of years. And as they really get out into what we like to refer to as the real world, the quote unquote real world, where you have to earn your own money and do all these things and put food on your own table, it's going to become a very eye-opening experience. But because of the past that they'll be looking back upon, they'll probably be able to maneuver much quicker than other kids who didn't have that experience. So you may not see what that looks like yet, but I already have a vision of it into your future. I'm excited about the conversations 10 years from now you're going to be having with your kids.
Now that you talk like that, for sure. Yeah, it's like on the bias side, I'm a big fan of The Matrix, the movie. And when Neil says that people can't be awakened past the 35 years of age, and that came true with a few things in my life, because if I wasn't the age that I was, I don't think I would have awakened to how the banking system works, how everything is. Because when I talk to, now that I'm 46, now that I talk to 46 years old, they don't even want to learn anymore. They lost that capacity to wanting to learn and grow. And so even explaining the concept becomes harder, because I'm like, how do I explain it to you if I can't show it to you? Like, I do a little bit of graphs around, or what? Like, what do you need? But it's not just that. It's just like they didn't even get exposed to it. Like,
Mm.
we could have talked for hours, because you have to unravel all the biases, right? Like that you said, right? And then it's just like, there's so much. There's a lot, right? Like there's health, there is, life, there is banking, and there is, land and real estate. And like, you just gotta go and wind back the wheel and then erase it all and then start over again, because the way the society is structured, right? And yeah, it's
Well, and there's lots of acronyms. The word fear. My favorite acronym for that has been future events appearing real. And often, you can't fear something in the past because it's already happened. You can only fear something into the future. And so often people fear the unknown, and the degree to which the unknown in the past has caused them some kind of maybe pain. And so you have enough past buildup, and you start to figure out, how can I minimize and reduce the unknowns in my future? And so that's, I think, what causes a little bit of that maybe walled view that some people have, that where they've lost the inspiration to learn. There's enough past behind them where they've been burned or something has happened, that they're just more guarded about what unknowns in the future look like. I think that's kind of what happens for people. But when it comes to, your kids and stuff, I don't know if you got a copy of this book, Don't Spread the Wealth. I suspect you might have one potentially, but this is our most recent book. We have one we're launching soon called Growing Your Own Capital. It's actually a book for farmers, how they can develop the ultimate line of credit to keep the farm in the family for generations. And similarly, this book is all about how to have those family banking meetings and really create a positive and exciting environment about discussions around money, while having that control and really thinking about a legacy that, legacy isn't dollars that we leave behind. It's the knowledge base and the value system that we have that we're leaving behind to the people we love and care about. And so that's what this book is all about. For those of you watching and listening, you can go to don'tspreadwealth.com. That's don'tspreadwealth.com, and pick up a copy. And of course, look out for our new book, Growing Your Own Capital, a great book for farmers that's coming out soon, co-written by the amazing Dan Allen. Now, Riccardo, I'm curious. I'll look forward to circling back with you once that book comes out and you get a copy in your hands, and you get a chance to give us your farmer's perspective.
yeah.
As an infinite banker on that new work. I look forward to hearing your feedback on it. Given everything we've talked about today, your 2.5 years with this process, you talked us through one of your first major policy loan purchases. What else have you been able to use, or are you planning and thinking about using your IBC system for, your family system for, over the next year? What's coming up for you, and what other things? Have you done some small little items as well? Where else have you been able to leverage it so far?
Yeah. Well, now my goal is to take everything, like from insurance and future purchases, tools or trucks and everything, and have that implemented and separated. And so then I repaid myself back, because it's a learning process, right? And so I want to repay myself back that amount that I would normally with a bank, but I would recover everything. So what's next is we're going to Italy with the whole family for the first time in the kids' life. So that's going to be an achievement that I can do through the infinite banking system, right? And yeah, we're super excited. So that's really coming up. And then, yeah, just renewing my insurance for the cars and trucks. And then obviously with real estate, I also keep it so that, my marketing and everything like that, I can just, take it out and then slowly put it back in. And if an opportunity pops up, because there might be a good deal here in town where I'm at, there might be a good deal so that I might have a down payment as well. So it's just it's just so amazing. It's like I don't even have to think about it. I just look at what my available loan is, and I'm like, okay. I got a pre-plan. Obviously, this is all to build legacy. I'm not spending it to buy stupid things, but it's possible to do it. Like I was reading that now the new kids are spending money and getting into loans about paying for tickets for like a Taylor Swift concert, right? And I don't doubt it. That's the best experience that you could have, but at least teach the kids the concept of paying interest over time. And, the ticket's going to cost you $1,000 now. And then when you do the payments and you're done doing the payments, then you're paid $1,500. So you technically could have gone to 1.5 concerts if you really managed or built in a system like the infinite banking system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's about, and it's also a learning progress too, because it's like you said, with the new books coming out, and I do want to have a book out, which actually Jin suggested it the other day, that has, I think it was Farming Without the Bank.
With Mary Jo Ehrman.
Yeah, Mary Jo.
Great friend. Yeah, amazing gal. She's actually did the foreword for our new book, which we're blessed that she.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So then I ordered it right away. As soon as Jin said, "Hey, you're in farming and you want to know more about the banking system and how to use it," because I do have still a lot of friends that are in farming, and every time I try to support my farmers. By the way, I want everybody here on this call to support farmers, because forget about the grocery store. I know it's cheaper to go to Walmart and grab your veggies and your meat and everything like that. But in the long run, it's not. It's subsidized money, first of all. And a lot of people don't understand even the subsidized concept. But guess what? They take your taxes and put it into the agriculture. So technically, you're paying for it indirectly, right? As they raise your taxes, then they pay for the grocery stores, right? But farmers don't have subsidies, right? Actually, they have more regulations over and over the small ones. And that's my goal, is to help out the small farmers, because we are not going to have the seed diversity that we need in this world unless it's the small farmers, because the big pharma, they don't care. They're just going to have one seed or two. Right? They don't need the diversity. They just want the strongest seed, and then everything else can be left. So if you want more products and more choice, and that goes to freedom, then you gotta support your small farmers. And it's like, talk about it as an investment to the future, right? For your kids and grandkids.
You're probably going to get a lot better quality stuff. I know, being in Chilliwack now, from the Edmonton area, also growing up in a small farming community. I remember as a kid, we used to go and get our milk directly from the farmer that milked the cow and bring it home and separate our own cream. We grew a large garden. We used to do some very similar things that you shared. Granted, with probably a shorter growing season than you may have had in Italy at the time. But, being here in Chilliwack, British Columbia, which is a beautiful, great farming community, shout out to Chilliwack corn, of course, which is fantastic. Yeah. But we love being able to walk, I can walk down the road. There's a trail literally about 4-minute walk down the road. And right beside that is a small farm. They've got a couple of horses, a couple of goats, a couple of donkeys. We can go get farm fresh eggs there and some veggies. And then there's numerous places. And so I love the idea of being able to hand deliver virtually, often into an honor box. It still exists in Chilliwack, which is, and pay for my goods and give my money directly to the farmer that did the work, grew the food directly. And it just feels really amazing to be able to do that. And I can tell you personally, the quality of materials that we get are far and above anything we've ever gotten in a grocery store. Not to say that there's always bad stuff in the grocery store. I'm just saying our personal experience has been when we buy directly from a farmer, we always get high quality, superior flavors and everything. And it's just nice. There's a really wonderful feeling about watching my dollars go right back into the local economy. Nelson Nash used to tell a story about what was known as Black Wall Street. There was some race riots in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I believe is in the early 20s. I don't remember the exact year, but where it took place, the area was known as or referred to as Black Wall Street because it was the most prosperous and economically, a fervor of activity in this environment because the dollars in the community weren't allowed to leave the community at that time. So the dollar turned over so many times before it ever left that community. And it was that activity that took place of economic value from this person to that person, to this business, to that business, all within this kind of localized community environment that caused such prosperity to happen. And when you do work in your local communities and your local environments, you can see that start to take place. So that's one of the reasons why I love supporting the farmers in our local community, of course, and keeping the dollars turning over, the turning of dollars and repeatedly inside of a smaller micro economy creates a amount of prosperity that's really something to behold. And so I encourage everyone to be aware of that and try to do more of it. And coincidentally, it's the same principle that applies to the infinite banking concept because we are operating inside of effectively, in this case, it's a national community. If you and I have a contract with the same life company, which I'm pretty sure we do, by the way, in fact, I probably have 12 or so contracts with that company. And so we are all mutually working within that community environment, and the dollars are kind of turning over. They're just turning over with an administrator that's overseeing everything in a really effective manner. They built the technology so you can click the button and take the loan and make the repayments. Like they put all that infrastructure together, kind of like the highway system, but they're allowing us to operate across the nation with other free contract people in this beautiful systematic environment where we get that autonomy. But now our dollars are rotating within that aggregate community. So the more and more people that are doing that and the more support it happens, the bigger and better that community and that implementation under the management of a great business administrator that's been doing it for 100 years allows us all to participate in those profits. So the same way you support your local farmer, you turn dollars in your local community on local businesses, is the same way that you can see the aggregate power and potential of working within the same insurance company with other free people and entering into free contract, which is the basis by which insurance is built.
Yeah, like that pops in, like how the banking system has created this sort of animosity with the insurance system, like, because when I was first hearing about insurance, I was like, ooh, that's a ugly word. I don't think I even want to go there. And my father passed away when I was 8 years old, and my mom had an insurance policy on his life, but it didn't pay. And so I always had this, no, I don't want to hear anything because, again, it was like this knowledge that I had, but it wasn't like I experienced it, but my mom did. And I was like, no, I don't want to hear insurance. They're just a ripoff. They don't make any sense. But as you get into it, and I started learning how the rich people do it, and I learned that, the Rockefellers have been using this system over generations. And look at that. They're like found rich, right? And I'm not saying that I want to be rich, but I want to be free. Like if my freedom is a different freedom from yours freedom or anybody that is watching this, right? So I want to be free in the sense that I don't have to think or do anything. If I want to take a trip to Italy, boom, I can do it, right? Like obviously right now I'm looking at how much I can loan out, but having that freedom to be able to do what you want And so going back to the insurance, I had this thing, oh, I don't want to hear it. But then I read in a book at the same time I was learning about the insurance process. I read in a book that whatever you oppose the most, it's what you need to do or get into it, right? And I was like, wow, this is pretty profound, because it's kind of like the universe saying, look, you got to take a look at this, because you can't be hearing insurance all the time and not be like, why am I getting all this stuff, right? Like there's a way that we can all intercommunicate. I don't call it God, but there's a consciousness that wraps us around us. Like we're droplets in an ocean, and we're all communicating. We're all experiencing life at this. We have the capacity to experience life at the same level, right? So the banking system is actually taking that life and sucking it out of you. But if you pull together with other people in the insurance model, then it's actually you're cooperating, you're coexisting. And that's what helps other people, because like with the loans, they loan it out, they're helping you, but at the same time, they're helping everybody else that it's in the pool. The banking system, they're only helping themselves and their CEOs, and they're growing their salaries. And actually, they're sucking you out, because the inflation, they're the cause of the inflation, or part of it, let's say. Let's not give them all the fault, right? But they're part of the problem of sucking that energy, because money is energy, right? Like a lot of the money books, it's just a representation. So when you're saying the dollar goes around, it's just energy being transferred, then being used. You want to use it the most efficient. That's what they taught us about in animal husbandry. When I was training my horse, they told me in a training course, it was like, horses would always take the path of least resistance. Oh, guess what electricity does? Always takes the path of least resistance. So what does money does too? It always takes the path of least resistance. That's why they're making the bank payments so easy, because, hey, guess what? If it was hard, I had to count the cash and bring it out, or do a loan, go up online and change it and transfer it, wait 2 days. At least you would have the time. I see it with the real estate. When people purchase, some people get like, what have I done? The buyer's remorse. Oh, I don't think I should have bought this. This is way too much for me. And they get anxiety and stuff. But if they had a process in between, like, no, take your time, take it easy, think about it. You're not committed fully, or then they're more relaxed. And, number one reason for stress is for health is stress, right? So it's like, it's good to put space in between every purchase as well. It's way too easy right now to go and purchase something, but with the banking system, you're the bank. So you have to do the file transfer. So you see the funds being transferred over and everything like that. So it puts a process in between, right?
I really like how you identified that, Riccardo, because it's an awareness mechanism.
Yes.
And the heightened level of awareness. So a friend of mine actually lives out in the Okanagan Valley. She has a great real estate group out there, real estate investor group. She used to say that the more you manage your money, the more money you have to manage. And so that always stuck with me. And managing it also means you need to be aware of it. So it alludes to the fact that there's a heightened degree of awareness. And Nelson's process, one of the reasons that people become successful with this, it isn't the insurance policy. The insurance policy is going to do whatever it's going to do.
Yeah.
It's your interaction with an insurance policy over time and your behaviors that determine that success. And because the mindsets and behaviors create new pathways of the brain, new habits being built, new seeking of efficiency, new decision-making processes. a lot of people may spend less money than they did before because their awareness has changed. And that automatically can lead to more sex. It doesn't mean that they're not still having a good life, or that they're decided that they're just gonna, eat macaroni and cheese or something for and Ichiban noodles. It just means that their awareness of their spending pattern becomes more clear and concise. And then the result of that is, over time, you start to see, well, geez, I have more money left over than I used to. Well, maybe some things have changed in your habits. And then that leads to expansion. And then that leads to more prosperity. And then that leads to more thinking. And then it leads to more discussions. And it just creates this like expansion wheel of activity. But we don't always see it in the moment because it doesn't happen in an instant. It actually happens over a long period of time. The same way that you plant corn, and it's going to take a while with some watering and some decent weather and some sunshine before you're going to start to see a sprout. And then you talked about that 15-foot corn, that red corn at the beginning of our conversation, Riccardo.
Yeah.
But every day that you went out there, unless you took a measuring tape, did you see how much the corn grew?
No.
You knew it was getting taller, but then all of a sudden one day you're like, oh my God, like that corn is really tall. But you remember a month and a half previous when it was 4 feet shorter than that. But you didn't recognize that every day it was growing because you weren't measuring it every day. Well, people aren't measuring their financial habits every day either.
And they should.
But yet, if you have a properly designed whole life insurance policy, that sucker is growing every single day.
Right.
And that degree of efficiency can add a lot of power and momentum into your life. And it's a subtle thing. It's a subtle change.
That is,
but it's little changes that lead to big results. That's how you get 15-foot corn.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you mentioned that because like at the beginning, I was looking at my cash value growing every day because Jinjing pointed it out. Look, how much is it growing every day? Oh, $5 a day. Wow. It's just like, and it's like you said, it's like the corn. Then you stop. It's like having a new car, right? Like you look at it and it's growing for the first few days, and then some life happens, and then you haven't gone back, and then you go and check 7 days later. Whoa, I got $100. Whoa, this is awesome. And then you go a month later. Oh, I can take out a loan. Oh wow, this is exciting, right? And it just keeps on growing, and then like it's cool to go and see that growth, right? It's kind of like what you made the analogy. It was amazing. I like tomatoes as a plant because you can definitely tell how much they grow overnight. Like the tomatoes and pot plants are the fastest photosynthesis. So, and then people don't know they grow at night. All plants grow at night. During the day, they collect the sugars, and then at nighttime, they use that sugar to grow the plant and the carbons. And so every morning when I get up there, I'm like, I don't have to have a tape measure because the tomato plants are like, holy shit, it's at my nose. Oh man, it's like a higher, right? And then it's the same thing with the policy. Like if I was to look at it every day, I would see it growing every day. And it's a feeling that at first, the first few times, I don't even know. I was like, wow, this is for real. Like, it's like you got to pinch yourself. You're like in a dream. How is it possible? And I wasn't taught it before. And then I take it, well, I guess the time is now, right? Like you either plant a tree 20 years before or now, right? And it's just like, oh man, like the what ifs come in, right? But anyways, yeah, no, it's a great concept for sure. I can't wait to spread it even more.
Well, Riccardo, we appreciate you sharing your story and be with us here today. You may not show up when you were farming or when you get in your car to go show some properties for people looking to buy some in the Okanagan Valley with a cape in hand. But when you teach your kids to be independent on the land, independent from the banking system, when you teach and share this message with other people, in my opinion, you are showing up as a hero to others. So my question for you here before we end our time today is, who do you most want to be a hero to?
I had that question asked to me in a coaching call. My kids, for sure. Just because I feel my My dad didn't have a chance to do it with me, but even though in the little time that I know and the little memories that I had of them, yeah, for sure, my kids and my wife too.
Amazing.
But my wife, she's on her path. We're on different paths, same family, and that's creates that energy, right? Plus or minus. Yeah.
Love it. Well, thanks so much for being with us here today and sharing a really cool story about your history, your usage of the policy, your strive for freedom and independence, and the many ways that you've been able to achieve it over your life, and the ways that you're going to continue to do so going forward. For those of you watching, of course, on YouTube, Shazam! You're going to see a great pop-up of a video that says, "Oh my God, this is incredible content." So you're going to want to click that, go ahead and keep learning, because there is no such thing as having arrived in knowledge. Thanks for being with us today. We'll catch you next week on next week's episode.